This NFL Week 8 Thursday Night Football Player Props Edition between the Los Angeles Rams and Minnesota Vikings on the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code MACHINE to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college football and the NFL with Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM.
And taking a shot to Brown downfield. He makes the catch, and he gets in for the touchdown. The catch is made by Calvin Ridley. Wilson, good as he throws deep downfield. It's going to be caught by Metcalf.
Welcome, everyone, to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. NFL Week 8 is upon us, starting on Thursday night between the Minnesota Vikings visiting Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, and the Los Angeles Rams to kick it off here. Should be a pretty good one here. Minnesota coming off of their first loss of the season at the hands of their division foe, the Detroit Lions, and now on a short week having to travel to the West Coast. Meanwhile, the Rams pulling off the victory, I should say, against the Raiders, who did have a quarterback change because of the thumb injury to Aiden O'Connell there, but they do get the 20-15 victory there. So you guys know how we do it here. Thursday Night Football, give you our player props, talk about some honorable mentions, get into our touchdown scores, and then we'll wrap it up with our best bets for Thursday Night Football. But joining me here to help me break everything down happening for this Thursday Night Football game, I got my guy here with me. It's Chris B. Capin. Chris, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
What's up? Excited to be here, man. Wednesday edition for the Thursday Night Football game, and I think it at least won't be a boring game. I think we'll at least get some fireworks in this one. So I think it'll be a step up from what we saw, even though we did see a lot of fireworks in the last game as well for last Thursday Night Football. But yeah, super excited to be here. NFL continues to be profitable for us both, and see if we can add some more money to our accounts and for others as well.
Yeah, it should be a pretty good NFC matchup here. I know we'll start here with some news, I guess we say, for both teams, more in part so for the Los Angeles Rams. Cooper Kupp's name popping up in trade rumors, and I thought that the Chiefs may be a destination, but lo and behold, this morning they trade for DeAndre Hopkins from the Tennessee Titans to give him some wide receiver depth with Patrick Mahomes there. We'll see how much Hopkins has in the tank, but I mean, if he's able to find some type of fountain of youth, I think that's only going to be beneficial, obviously, for Patrick Mahomes there, as they're going to be without Rashid Rice. Hollywood Brown at the beginning of the year wasn't there for that team, and just really decimated by injuries there to the wide receiver position. So, the Cooper Kupp supposed to return this week. Sean McVay says we'll see in what type of capacity he'll be used and trying to ease him back in just because it is a shorter week. But also, like I mentioned, that they have put his name on the trading block, that the Rams came out and said that they'll absorb the salary as well, but they are looking for a second-round draft pick for the services of Cooper Kupp. So we'll see which team comes up and trades for him. I'll keep that in mind for this game. Other than that, pretty not much going on. I mean, we'll touch on the injury report as we kind of go along here, but at least for the Minnesota Vikings side, only one undefeated team left. That is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. It was a pretty good game between the Lions and the Vikings last week, but the Lions were able to pull it off, led by Jared Goff, and especially that running game for the Detroit Lions there. So short weeks, short memories for at least the Minnesota Vikings looking to get back on the winning side of things here, Chris. But do you have any general thoughts for Rams and Vikings?
Yeah, you mentioned the potential fire sale that at least it looks like it could be starting here for the Los Angeles Rams, even coming off a win. Sean McVay is one of the probably greatest schemers and play callers that we've seen in the NFL in quite some time. But when you take those hits, what was it, week 1, right, when they were playing against Detroit, we saw the offensive linemen started to get banged up. Then Cooper Kupp goes down, and then Puka goes down, and it just feels like potentially not the year for the Rams. Aging Stafford at quarterback, and you got a Minnesota team that probably want to get, bad taste out of their mouth. The only bad taste that they've had all season, which is, them coming off a loss, like you mentioned, to the Detroit Lions. Short week, travel cross country. What are they going from? They're going from travel.
They
Yeah,
were
yeah,
Minnesota was at home traveling to West and the West
yeah.
Coast, and I think the
Rams were at home,
Rams
right?
were at home against
Yeah,
the
right. Okay.
Raiders. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay, yeah. So I was just wanted to make sure I was right. I said cross country trip, and I was want to double check. Yeah. So cross country trip here, but I think I think they got enough to get the job done here. We got two teams. It feels like kind of going in opposite directions, and if you're Minnesota, that NFC North, whew, boy, looking like the best division in football with Caleb Williams, yeah, leading this team to another, to an impressive record within the first 7 weeks of football too. So yeah, I'm excited for the game. I think it's like a lot of player props that I like here. So might be difficult to give out a best bet, but it's a couple that I like for sure, and I'm excited to jump into them.
Yeah, let's get into it here for this Thursday night football game. But before I do that, let me remind all of our listeners to take a moment for them and thank them for listening to the podcast here in the Propcast. Wouldn't be here without our listeners here, but if they could do us a huge favor, you guys could do us a huge favor. If you haven't already, leave us a comment on Spotify. They have a new feature there where you can leave a comment about the podcast. And also give us a 5-star rating review while you're in there. We're trying to prevent corporate gambling from taking over. You guys know how we do it here at SGPN. All of our content is free. So if you just do us that much and do us a favor, leave us a 5-star rating over on Spotify. That would be greatly, greatly appreciated for the Propcast here. Shout out to KC in the chat saying you got a fresh cut there, Chris. Is that the truth?
Not the truth at all. Casey she can't see that good. That's all. Love you, Casey.
All right, let's get into it here. Let's start here with our quarterback props for Thursday night football. Let's start with quarterbacks here. Chris, lead us off.
We're going to target the Minnesota quarterback here. I like Sam Darnold, under 31.5 pass attempts. This was something that, game script wise kind of made a bunch of sense, right? I'm thinking that the way I see the game going anyway is that, the Minnesota team is going to be able to rely a lot on their rushing attack. And we know what Aaron Jones can do, coming out of that backfield, which I'll talk about him in just a second as well. But I'm of the mindset, that we probably see a little ball control here from the Minnesota side, right? Not wanting to get too crazy with the play calls, especially coming off a short week, right? With travel as well, where you got the Rams, back-to-back home games for them. So at least that's a little bit of an advantage. And the game script made a lot of sense. I said, Aaron Jones will run the football. At least that's what I'm thinking. Aaron Jones will run the football. This defense isn't great.
Yep.
And Sam Darnold won't have to pass it that much. Then I look at the numbers, Sam Darnold has not thrown the ball 32 times in the last 15 games. Yep. It's been 15 straight games where he's not had to throw the ball for 32 times. So I love that. I go back and look at the quarterbacks that the Rams defense have faced so far. One quarterback, has actually thrown the ball 32 times. And that happened to be last week, Gardner Minshew.
Yep.
Up and over the number. I look at Minnesota, and we know that, they're a team that likes to be well balanced. Minnesota's only passing 27.5 times per game, So I do see some value here in the line being at 31.5. The 27.5 pass attempts that they average per game is 30th. So this is not a team that passes the ball a lot at all. And if they get up to a big lead, which is something that they have been doing throughout the season, outside of last weweek, they were undefeated ATS in the first half. And if we see that, we probably see Sam Darnold not passing the ball a lot. So I've been on the wrong side of these pass attempts to go over recently because I found a matchup that I like, but I do like this under him. So Sam Darnold, I'll go under on his 31.5 pass attempts here. Best number I saw was 8 cent of juice over on FanDuel.
Yeah, and I think I think both you and I will have the same running back prop here because you alluded to Aaron Jones, right? But we want to back him in some form or fashion in this game. But like you mentioned, right, and there's also the rumor, I didn't even touch on this, that they were swirling that maybe the Minnesota Vikings were interested in Matthew Stafford. So this may be kind of a trial game for Matthew Stafford. So but we'll see. But even the completions haven't really been there for a lot of these starters against the Rams, right? I mean, you take a look, there's only been one starter that had 20 plus, two starters, I should say. One starter that had 20 plus completions against the Rams, which was Brock Purdy, who had 22. Last week, the Raiders, 2 guys combined for 21, which was Aiden O'Connell's 6 before he left the game with a thumb injury. And then Gardner Minshew, 15 of 34 last week. So I could see a world where number one, the attempts are not going to be there. The attempts are not there for a guy like Sam Darnold. The completions are probably not going to be there for him as well. So with you on this here for sure for for Sam Darnold in this game against the Los Angeles Rams. And it's a complete opposite story for the other side of the quarterbacks when you take a look at quarterbacks against the Minnesota Vikings, where they're having to throw the football a little bit more. But I think a lot of that had to do at the beginning of the season because the Vikings were getting off to big leads, right? Where they were up by either a touchdown or multiple touchdowns. And that was forcing other teams to throw the football against them. And last week was the first week where we didn't have a quarterback that threw for more than 35 times against this Minnesota Vikings team, only because Jared Goff was so efficient in that game last week. 22 of 25, Chris, for 280 yards for Jared Goff in that game. But all the other quarterbacks that they have faced had more than 22 or more completions. And then, like I mentioned, 36 pass attempts or more. You had 4 different quarterbacks that they faced this season, Chris, that have attempted 40 or more passes. So I went there, took Matthew Stafford over on his pass attempts in this game. Kyren Williams has been a little up and down as far as consistency goes, Chris. I know you and I have talked about him on the Propcast when we do our Sunday player props. But, he's really thriving in matchups where he has advantages against the opposing rush defense that has been bad. But even last week, 21 of 36, only 3.6 yards per carry. We know the touchdowns are going to be there for Kyren Williams. I don't know how many games in a row now he scored a touchdown. But I do think that this will be on the shoulders of Matthew Stafford. At least the pass attempts will be there in this game. So I went over 33.5 pass attempts, thinking that, again, hey, if Minnesota does get out to a lead again, that they're going to have to play from behind a little bit with Matthew Stafford. And that rush defense for the Minnesota Vikings has been really good this season as well. I'll quickly just mention those numbers here. They're only allowing 4.2 yards per carry and only allowing 72 rushing yards. There's only been last week was the first time where they allowed a running back outside of Jordan Mason to have 100 or more rushing yards. So say all that, Matthew Stafford over 33.5 pass attempts here, Chris.
Yeah, we got the game. We got the same script here. I took your notes or you took mine because I'm thinking it goes the same way. You laid out the numbers perfectly, and I think that's the perfect segue because I'm on Kyren Williams here. If I know you talked about Aaron Jones, I'll leave him for you, but Kyren Williams, I'll take him under the 75.5 rushing yards. You can get this number minus 120, and it's a lot of what you just said. Vikings continue to make offense is very one-dimensional. They take away the run, forcing you to pass the ball. This team ranks number 1 in opponent rushing EPA per play, number 2 in opponent rush success rate. And outside of, like you said, Jahmyr Gibbs last week and Jordan Mason in week 2, those are only 2 running backs that have seen north of 76 yards. So I will gladly think that they bounce back here in this spot, make this Los Angeles Ram offense very one-dimensional. And I'll take Kyren Williams. I know that he's been, very consistent and getting up and over this number, but I think there is a reason why you see him have such success and then the number, not be set as nearly as high. And that's because, like you mentioned, that 4.2 yards per carry, for that is being allowed by Detroit. I think that number was south of 3.8, I think, last week before Jahmyr Gibbs had such a big day on the ground. So I think that they bounce back. I'm pretty sure they have the attention of, the defense has the attention of this offense. The other thing I'll mention is I've got to make this point. That Detroit Lions offensive line is probably the best in football. So you get a big downgrade here, right? You get a big downgrade here, and I think that's also worth mentioning as well. So I'll take Kyren Williams under his 75.5 rushing yards here,
Yeah, like you mentioned, the game script is right there for Kyren Williams to go under this number here, just because the Vikings rush defense has been really, really good. I know last week, like we mentioned, Jahmyr Gibbs had a big week against it, but I think I want to say about 40% of that came on one run where I think he scampered it for a 42-yard touchdown for the Detroit Lions in that game. But other than that, he's been absolutely fantastic. Has Kyren Williams, but I think this week is where he does get into a little bit of trouble here against the Minnesota Vikings. All right, Chris, before we continue the conversation here, let me tell everyone about our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Pick'em has one of the biggest menus for all sports: NFL, college football, MLB, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, and more. Boostober is upon us, which means you get a spooky amount of profit boosts and much more. And with the NBA tipping off this week, every NBA Pick'em entry from October 19th through October 27th will be boosted. And you can now use specials and boosts on all flex entries. So sign up with promo code MACHINE to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's underdogfantasy.com. Make sure you use our promo code MACHINE. All right, Chris, just keep it rolling here. Let's get over to my running back prop here, and that's going to be Mr. Aaron Jones to go over on his rush attempts in this game. I'm heavy on attempts this week, but let's take a look at what running backs have been able to do against the Rams this season. This was pretty much cut and dry, because if we're expecting Sam Darnold to not have a big game here, and you mentioned ball control, how do you do that? Running the football, right? Teams are averaging close to 27 rush attempts per game against the Los Angeles Rams, 26.67 to be exact, Chris. 121 rushing yards per game, giving up about 4.5 yards per carry. And I know that Aaron Jones is dealing with a little bit of a hamstring issue, but he still had a really good week last week for the Minnesota Vikings against the Detroit Lions. Taking a look at his numbers: 14 attempts, 93 yards. But prior to that, against the Jets, not a lot of success, 7 for 29. That was a game in London. But then against the Packers, 22 attempts. He had 19 attempts against the Texans. And right now, the official number for his rush attempts is sitting at 13.5 in this game here, Chris. So if they do want to play ball control, if they are going to be possibly playing with the lead, you want to get Aaron Jones a football, let him run with the football here. And like I mentioned, that's just the pure numbers are just backing this up for running backs against the Rams. Quickly just read it off here. Week 1, David Montgomery, 17 attempts. Week 2, 21 attempts for James Conner, 19 attempts for Jordan Mason, 16 for DeAndre Swift, 19 for Josh Jacobs, and then last week, Alexander Madison, 23. So I think that he could get up and over this number of 13.5 here, Chris. I'll go Aaron Jones over 13.5 rush attempts.
Yep. Either we're gonna look like geniuses or we're gonna look like idiots because we both got the same exact script for the game, and I think it just aligns well. I wasn't even gonna go rush attempts, but they make a ton of sense. I was actually gonna go rush yards. But the attempts make sense. It's completely correlated, right? And I wanted to do a little bit more deep digging just to kind of see how hampered he potentially is with the injury. The hamstring injury, actually came in week 5 when they beat the Jets, and they were in London. Then he had a bye week in week 6, and he looked, like you said, he looked good last week. 29-year-old guy out there getting 14 carries for 93 yards, and adding a couple catches as well. I don't think that there's any setback here, especially with them not practicing on Monday. I expect them to be out there today and have a big game on the ground because you mentioned it. This team. The team that they're playing against is a team that's giving it up, to say the least, to the running back position. 151.7 yards per game, which is the second most, and also giving up the second most attempts per game as well on the ground. So love Aaron Jones in all the ways this week. And this is a prop that you probably you let me know what you think. I'm thinking this is a prop that you probably want to get on early because I don't think the number's going to go down at all. I don't think either one of these numbers are going to go down from between now and tomorrow. We'll probably only see some increase.
Yeah, 100%. Again, I think these numbers will be on the move here for at least the attempts that we are talking about here for Aaron Jones and also for Matthew Stafford and Sam Darnold there as well. So, if you're watching live, you're getting to this early, try to get all these numbers early. Like we always say, shop around and get the best number. All right, so those are our running back props there. Let's get over to our last player props here before we get to honorable mentions here. Chris, lead us off.
I am going to go with Tutu Atwell. I'm going to take Tutu up and over 38.5 receiving yards here. Did you have that one down too?
All right.
Okay.
I have him as a player prop here, but it's a different prop. Yeah.
Okay, so you probably took his longest reception, but I
Yep.
like his receiving yards. Him, Minnesota, because I think Minnesota, is such a strong defense, and we kind of laid all of those numbers out against the running game. The one deficiency, or I guess you could, I don't even know if it's that much of a deficiency. I guess the one way that they've been forcing teams to kind of score or contribute is through the air. If I went back and looked at it, they've actually given up 100 yards to a receiver, to at least one receiver that they faced every week since week one when they played against Malik Neighbors and the New York Giants. I think he had 66 yards, but every single week they've given it up. And the reason why is because, as we talked about it, they get out to these big leads, they hold on to them, and then teams are forced to throw the football, which correlates with everything that you talked about and everything that I talked about. The 38.5 for Tutu, is actually a number that he's exceeded in 5 straight games. And in those 5 straight games, he's had at least 48 receiving yards in every single one of them. There's the likelihood that we talked about it. This game becomes one-dimensional for the Rams, and they end up having to pass the ball a lot. Also went through and looked at his target share. He has at least 5 targets in 4 straight games, proven to be one of Stafford's favorite receivers. And even with Cooper Kupp coming back, I don't think that it's going to be a lot of snaps this week. So it's probably one of the last weeks that I'll be looking at Tutu, unless we actually see that trade be made for Cooper. But we'll see how that goes. Either way, him in, him out, I like Tutu to have at least 40 receiving yards. So I thought 38.5 was a bit conservative. I will play him up and over 38.5 receiving yards here.
Yeah, and again, correlated to what I like you mentioned, the longest reception to go over every single week. The Vikings have allowed at least one wide receiver to have 25 or more yards on their longest reception every single week that they've played an opposing wide receiver. So I know they get Cooper Kupp back. We talked about it, Chris, but how effective is he going to be? That'll be to be determined. But I still think there's an opportunity for Tutu Atwell to continue for everything that you mentioned, right? That rapport of how long Tutu Atwell's been with this team, and in particular with Matthew Stafford, that's only going to help him in this game. And again, like we talked about how good the rush defense has been for this Vikings team, I think that also that the offense is going to have to throw the football a little bit more. We take a look at the longest receptions for Tutu Atwell this season. Week 1 wasn't much of a factor against the Lions, but week 2 against the Cardinals, 21. He had a 50-yarder against the Niners, 25 against the Bears, 24 against the Green Bay Packers. Last week did fall a little bit short at 13, but again, to your point, he's gone over the number of, what was it, 38.5 you said for his receiving yards, Chris?
38.5, yep.
Yeah, he's done that in every single week except for week 1 here. So I think I might double down on this one, take the over on his receiving yards. Maybe he gets a 40-yard catch, and we're sitting in the clubhouse with some winning tickets there. But I think it's another good correlation here between Tutu Atwell's receiving yards and also his longest reception to go over the number of 19.5. All right, so that's 3 player props each for myself and Chris. A little bit of agreement as usual because we're starting to share the same brain here. But let's get into some honorable mentions here, Chris. I got a couple on my list here, but I'll let you lead it off, man.
Just one for me, that I kind of circled, and I don't know, just kind of had a little slight hesitation. Kobe Parkinson, him, over 32.5 receiving yards. We already kind of talked about it and laid it out. Even with, Kupp coming back, I think, just looking at his involvement recently, thinking about how the game is going to be played, I could definitely see him going up and over this number. Minnesota, I mentioned it, gave up 100 receiving yards, at least to one receiver. Parkinson has 3 games, this season where he's had at least 3 catches. And in those 3 games, he's up and over 33.5 receiving yards in all 3. Minnesota is allowing 46 yards through the air to the tight end position specifically. So, I kind of lean Cody to continue, I guess, to play well, but I haven't bet this one yet. So what's your thoughts? And then let me know what you're thinking about as well.
Yeah, so we take a look at the tight ends against the Minnesota Vikings. I think that week 2, George Kittle had a big week. Packers, Tucker Kraft had 53 yards. I think it was Tyler Conklin who had Conklin, I should say, had a big week there against the Vikings in London. Last week, he had 25 yards from Sam Laporta. The opportunity, the targets are definitely there for tight ends against the Vikings at 7. I feel a lot of it is predicated on what we're going to get out of Cooper Kupp. I don't think it's going to be a lot. I'm trying to pull up the exact quote of what Sean McVay said about getting Cooper Kupp back because, again, number one, his name has been in trade rumors like we talked about. So obviously you want to keep him healthy. Anything that, could derail that about getting him traded. I think that that's only going to be obviously a bad thing for the Rams there. So that opens up the opportunities. We talked about Tutu Atwell. We talked about Colby Parkinson, like you mentioned here. And again, I think there's been plenty of success for tight ends against the Minnesota Vikings here. So really couldn't talk you off of that one. All right, I'll throw a couple at you here. I got two here on my list, Chris. We talked a lot about Aaron Jones, and running backs have also had a lot of success through the passing game against the Vikings as well. And you know me, I always have at least one receiving prop for a running back against an opposing defense. But I'll make this quick here. Running backs against the Rams, I should say, have gone for, let's see, close to 4 receptions per game on 4 targets per game, but they're averaging 31.83. But it's been a little bit more prominent over the last couple of weeks here. DeAndre Swift, 7 for 72. And then we had Josh Jacobs, who had 1 for 21. And then last week, Alexander Madsen went off for 3 receptions for 31 yards. And we know that, even his days back to the Packers when Aaron Jones was there, he was very involved in that passing game. I think that's also been a theme here in this on this team, I should say, for Aaron Jones with Sam Darnold and that offense. Quickly trying to find the numbers here. So 36. So he's been very effective. 36, 46, 46, 24, and 23 for Aaron Jones. The number right now for his receiving yards in this game is sitting at 24.5. So I think there's an opportunity there. Then I go Sam Darnold to throw in an interception in this game. I mean, he's thrown at least 1 interception in every game this season, except for 1. We know that the old he sees ghosts out there has been something that's haunted him throughout his career. But the only game he didn't throw interception, Chris, was against my Texans back in week 3. But every other game, at least 1 interception that he's thrown this season. So those are the 2 I was looking at, the honorable mentions. Thinking if I probably get there with at least a Sam Darnold one. I think it was at plus 105 if I'm not mistaken, Chris. But those were the 2 I was looking at. Any thoughts on those?
Yeah, the Sam Darnold interception makes a lot of sense here, especially if, I mean, you mentioned it. Whatever he's doing is working for the full game, but he is continuing to throw at least 1 short week, less prep time on the road. All of those different things I think are factors. And you the cherry on top was what you said at the end, plus money. I'm always interested in a little plus money. So I think I like that one as well. And we always try to hunt these interception props. And I think you probably found a good one here, So I couldn't talk you off of that one at all.
All right, so those are honorable mentions for Thursday night football. Before we do get into our touchdown scores for this week 8 Thursday night football game, let me tell everyone about our friends over at BetUS. Bet with the best in the business. BetUS. Incredible betting menu there over at BetUS. And again, one of the best in the business, and they've been around for more than 30 years. Easily deposit using cryptocurrency and get lightning fast payouts. US players are always welcome. Sign up and deposit $100, and you have a chance to win a 1960 Ford Mustang. Use our link and get a 125% deposit bonus on your first 3 deposits. Just go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/BetUS. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/BetUS, promo code SGPN. So they know that we sent you. BetUS, America's favorite sports book. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. SGPN's proud partner, Rhythm, is the #1 AI-powered backed sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds and get predictions for betting on money lines, spreads, totals, and props. Build your own model, copy one of the top performing models from the leaderboard, or press build a model for me, and Rhythm gives you predictions for every game and player props. It also has a myriad of stats, research, and trend analysis to give you even more betting insights. Plus, Rhythm's NBA models are now live. And taking a look at their predictions here for the Thursday night football game, as far as player props do go, they do like, let's see here. We'll go over to the passing yards in this game, and they do like Matthew Stafford over 235.5 passing yards. They're predicting he has 249 in this game. So claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. All right, Chris, let's get into touchdown scores here for week 8. We did pretty good over the last 2 weeks. I know we nailed the San Francisco 49ers a couple of weeks ago. I gave out the defense / special teams last week. That was a nice plus 450 cash for the pod here. But who do you like to find the end zone this week?
Man, I think we'd be remiss without just mentioning the guy that we like probably the most, Aaron Jones. The idea that you can get him at plus money, if I saw Bet365 hanging out a plus 100 up there, I thought this would at least be minus, 110, minus 115. And I understand it's been 7 weeks. He only has 3 touchdowns, two on the ground and 1 through the air. But man, with this rushing defense, like I low key want to double up here, and take him to get multiples here, because I think that he could have that kind of success here, this week. Outside of him, I think looking at a guy like Justin Jefferson. I mean, how could you not, right? He scored every week so far this season, except in week 5 when they went to London and they were playing against the Jets. So for him to kind of continue his streak, and for the odds not to be super juiced, I thought he would come in about minus 130. I mean, maybe they close at minus 130, minus 135, but I see him at minus 110. So if I can lay 10 cents and get those guys, I'll take the chalk here. I've been thinking that it's one of those guys to score on the Minnesota side. Cooper Kupp throws me off just a tad bit, just because I feel like it'll be, you don't get a lot of value, of course, taking Kyron Williams. I think I saw him at like minus 175 because he scored, feels like, every week since, the 1918 Super Bowl. But the wide receiver room, if it's a lot of those guys over there for Stafford. So I guess I'll leave that side of the ball for you, where you could tell me. I think I saw Cooper at plus 125 though, which I guess is a little intriguing, it being his first week back and knowing the chemistry that he has with Stafford. But I didn't bet anything on that side of the ball. Just Aaron Jones, maybe even double Aaron Jones here. But I really do like Justin Jefferson as well. Especially with the price tag that I can get.
Yeah, I feel like that one was a little cheap there for JJ in this game. Cooper Kupp at plus odds. I think that's always intriguing. Is this the first game back for Hawkinson, or did he? I don't think I saw him on the field last week. Let's see. Yeah, this is going to be his first game back. So you get TJ Hawkinson back for the Minnesota Vikings there, but his odds at plus 195. I don't. I mean, we'd be remiss without mentioning Tutu Atwell. I think it's great odds there, plus 265. Anytime you and I agree on a player, they do find the end zone there. So we'll put them in the list there, plus 265. But we talk about these two teams, it's always like chalk heavy because those guys at the top of the list. I mean, Kyron Williams, I think it's been like 10, 11 straight games. Aaron Jones, a guy that can find the end zone. Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp there as well. I know Jordan Addison, I think, scored a touchdown last week, or was it? I think it was Jalen Naylor for the Minnesota Vikings there. But yeah, I'll mention that those guys. Tyler Johnson, if you want to look at that, 5-1. I know they're a little bit thin. Are the the Los Angeles Rams at the wide receiver position? Did see that Puka Nakua's practice window did open up, the 20-1 day practice window, but he won't be obviously playing in this game. So maybe once he's back, and then who knows, maybe Cooper Kupp gets traded after this game or before the Sunday games, that their opportunities are going to be there later down the road for those guys. And we won't get those odds ever again for guys like Tyler Johnson and such. So 5-1 there. I'll throw that out there. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it here as far as touchdown scores in this game. All right, Chris, let's get into our best bets here to wrap up this week 8 Thursday night football episode. Where are you taking us for your best bet?
Man, you know what? It's difficult, man. Last couple of weeks, I've been coming on, on Thursday and giving out these unders. for running back specifically, and they've been really, really good to me. Last week we cashed on David Montgomery under his 12.5 rush attempts. Ended up getting hurt, but coming back in that game. Last Thursday, I gave out Alvin Kamara under 71.5 rushing attempts, under 71.5 rushing yards in that game. That was really good to us as well. So it's difficult for me to want to get away from the running back position here, but I love Kyron Williams under, and I love Aaron Jones over. I also love Sam Darnold as well. So we'll switch it up. We go quarterback this week. We'll go Sam Darnold under 31.5 pass attempts here. Love that we can get this at close to, laying just 8 cents. Also love that, he hasn't thrown 16 passes, 32 passes, and it's been 16 games, so yeah. 15-0 trend here. I'll take it, especially with the game script that I expect to be run heavy against a very poor run defense in the Rams. So we'll go Sam Darnold under 31.5 pass attempts here, best bet.
All right. For my best bet, I do like Aaron Jones over on his rush attempts as well. That one has a 100% hit rate this season as well. I really do like Tutu as well. I'll go Aaron Jones. I think that for Minnesota, you talked a lot about ball control in this game. I think this game will be closer than people think in this game, but I think it will be a little bit more run heavy with Aaron Jones. Talked about how every running back has had at least 14 rushing attempts against the Los Angeles Rams, and if you want to have success against the Rams defense, it's through the ground now because Mr. Aaron Donald's not there anymore for this Rams team. That was a huge run stopper and just creating havoc on that defensive line for the Los Angeles Rams there. But there's those running backs have found success this season. So Aaron Jones over 13.5 rush attempts would be my best bet for Thursday night football here to kick off week 8 of the National Football League. And that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Propcast. Thursday night football, Vikings, Rams should be a good one. So definitely looking forward to this. Chris, you got anything else, my man, you want to mention before we get out of here?
No, that'll be it, man. Appreciate you as always for hosting the Propcast, for all of our listeners for, tuning in and following us. So we definitely appreciate that. Always bet responsibly, never over your means. Enjoy the game. And we'll be back here before you know it, to talk about some Sunday NFL props as well. Super excited about week 8 in the NFL.
Yeah, 100%. It was interesting to see there's no bye weeks this week in the NFL. So we'll have
which is good for my fantasy team,
There you go. And we'll have all teams playing this week. So again, more opportunities for us to find some value with all the teams playing this week. All right, we'll be back later this week for the NFL Propcast for the Sunday game. So look out for us then. Till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off and always remember to let it ride.